My name is Chloe, and on the night I turned 22, my childhood next door, Julian from the estate next door, pinned me against the wall at the end of the upstairs hallway. Cold plaster at my back, his scorching chest and tipsy breath in front. He let the warm air drift deliberately across the shell of my ear, voice low as a cello but threaded with danger that raised every hair on my neck. Chloe, marry me, okay? My reaction was absolutely not overjoyed, it was spooked, the soul-fleeing kind. It felt like 10,000 bees dive-bombing my skull, and the only coherent thought was, Julian has lost his mind. He actually said that to me. Who is he? Sterling is the dynasty that can flip this city sky up or sky down with one hand, and Julian is the acknowledged, untouchable prince of Riverdale. And me. Just an ordinary girl lucky enough to grow up beside him because our fathers once sat on the same little league bleachers. The heiresses with pedigrees thicker than the yellow pages send me so many limited edition bags and jewels just to score a dinner with him that I could open a boutique in my bedroom. I know exactly how wide the gulf is between us. So that marry me could only be toying with me. A joke, what else? I shoved him away with every ounce of toddler at tantrum strength, then bolted like a terrified rabbit, slammed my bedroom door, and slid down the panels until my butt hit the floor while my heartbeat tried to jump out of my throat. I didn't sleep the whole night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw his dark gaze and that demonic sentence on loop. I forcibly relabeled the whole birthday fiasco as Julian's spur-of-the-moment prank. After all, the mind of this particular Sterling has always been unfathomable. After graduation, through family strings, I still landed a job at Sterling and by some cosmic joke became Julian's executive assistant. I told myself work is work, private ties are private ties. Turns out I was hopelessly naive. From day one I sank into the scalding water Julian had thoughtfully drawn for me. Delivering the quarterly report was normal. A Julian-style report was torture. I hugged the folder, droned through every number. He lounged in the massive chair, gave a faint to prove he was alive. Just as I pivoted to leave, he unhurriedly lifted long fingers to the top button of his shirt. 1 pop, 2 pops. A sliver of sculpted collarbone and chest flashed. The movement was artistic, his stare direct, as if asking, like the exhibit. My face ignited. I didn't know where to look, so I nodded like a broken bobblehead. Sterling, if that's all, I'll go. I fled, convinced I heard a low laugh behind me. That wasn't even the worst. Once he ordered me to rush an urgent document to the elite gym above the club. I tore over, found the private suite, shoved the door, and there he was on a treadmill drenched in sweat. Wearing nothing but compression shorts. Drops slid down the cut lines of his cheekbones, coursed over the rolling terrain of his chest, surfed the ridges of his abs, and finally disappeared under that whisper-thin waistband. Pure testosterone slapped me in the face. I froze, file clamped in my fist like an idiot who'd wandered into a lion's den. Drop it there, he said, breath steady, not even slowing, glancing sideways with post-sprint savagery. I toddled over, set the paper down, evaporated again. The time that almost broke me, he rang at night asking for a file at his penthouse. I pressed the bell, he opened the door, hair dripping, a towel the only thing lazily knotted around his hips. Water beads slid across the brackets of his chest muscles and vanished into the shadow above the terry cloth. Steam and his abyss-dark eyes turned the doorway air thick and syrupy. Shampoo in my eye, he murmured, frowned soft, voice carrying a vulnerability completely at odds with his usual dominance. Chloe, take a look. I petrified on the threshold. Why you look yourself? Here's the file. I shoved it at him and sprinted for the stairs because waiting for the elevator felt too slow. His low, satisfied chuckle still chased me down the stairwell. Again and again he abused company time and every plausible excuse to display skin and charisma, always subtle, always borderline accidental, always lethal. I knew it was deliberate hazing, yet my heartbeat slipped further out of control each time. This man is a grandmaster at weaponizing his own advantages. Just as I was getting used to the intermittent beauty ambush, a bucket of ice water news arrived. Sterling was shopping for Julian's bride. The target, Victoria, an ivy-covered pedigree, a face that could launch 1,000 IPOs, and manners polished to high gloss. Everyone in Riverdale agreed she was one of the rare matches worthy of him. The announcement stabbed me like a splinter under a nail. See, Chloe, this is Julian's universe, his proper orbit. Your little childhood next door story and his random teasing weigh nothing against bloodline spreadsheets and balanced power portfolios. I started avoiding him, email instead of face-to-face, robotic distance whenever contact was unavoidable. He noticed, said nothing, only watched me with eyes that grew darker and more unreadable. Then Victoria marched straight into the executive suite. Chanel suit, Hermes bag, smile immaculate. I, the assistant, could only offer coffee with my gaze fixed on the carpet. I've heard so much about you, Chloe. Julian says you're his most capable aide. Her tone was warm honey laced with invisible calipers. I manufactured a professional grin. Victoria flatters me. It's just my job. Julian leaned back, gaze ping-ponging between us, a cryptic half-smirk parked on his lips. Chloe is very capable, especially at taking care of daily life. In front of Victoria, that harmless line turned radioactive with innuendo. My cheeks combusted, my fingers dented the tray. Victoria's smile spasmed for a millisecond before rebooting. Really? How rare. When she finally swanned out, I hid in the pantry, forehead against the cool marble. Footsteps. Before I could pivot, the familiar cedar musk scent caged me. Julian braced one hand beside me, walling me between the counter and his torso. Avoiding me? The growl brushed my ear. I stiffened. Sterling, this is company territory. Please respect boundaries. Boundaries? He snorted. Funny, you weren't so eloquent in front of Victoria. His warm fingers actually captured my earlobe, rolling it lazily, sending lightning down my spine. Seeing her with me upset you? The question was laced with knowing wickedness. I whirled, intending to shove, but collided with those churning dark eyes. Julian, enough. My voice shook. You've got your alliance waiting, your perfect debutante, why keep toying with a nobody? Is my embarrassment your favorite sitcom? His gaze sharpened. Toying? You think that's all this is? What else? I shot back, eyes stinging. You're actually going to claim you like me? The second I said it, I wanted to laugh at myself. Julian went silent, drilling holes into me with that stare. When I braced for something worse, he suddenly released me, stepped back, and reverted to glacial CEO mode. Prepare the materials for the 2:30 meeting. He exited, leaving me wondering if the predatory man had been a hallucination. After that near confrontation, I erected higher ramparts. He sailed on, untouched, precise, demanding perfection as usual. Only the beauty raids stopped, which made me more insecure. It felt like the silence before a hurricane. Friday afternoon his line buzzed. Sterling. I stood ramrod straight. He shoved an exquisitely wrapped box across the desk. Business gala tonight, come with me. Dress and shoes inside. I blinked. Sir, that's inappropriate. PR should handle. PR has other orders. His tone vetoed debate. Your measurements are in HR files. The outfit should fit. He paused. Consider it an apology for my tone in the pantry. Apology via gala? What kind of algorithm produced that? I hunted his face for teasing, found only CEO issue blankness. But, no buts. He closed the folder, rounded the desk, looked down at me. Unless you're scared. Scared stiff of standing beside him, of the city's magnifying glass, of my own unruly heartbeat. But pride flared. Who's scared? Fine, I'll go. A micro smile flickered. 6 sharp, basement garage. The champagne one-shoulder gown and silver heels fit like Julian had personally measured every centimeter, waist nipped, skin glowing. At 6 I slid into the waiting roles. He sat reviewing tablets in a razor-cut tux, arctic and untouchable. When he glanced up, the pause was microscopic but unmistakable. Surprise, appreciation, quickly buried. I wedged myself into the corner furthest from him. We rode in silence. The ballroom glittered. The second Julian stepped inside, camera flashes detonated. Between handshakes he kept angling back to murmur, tired, or need to sit. When I reached for chilled passionfruit juice he intercepted, tested the temperature, then handed it over, ice, small sips. To the outside world it looked boyfriend-level considerate. Society matrons stared daggers of envy into my spine. Your assistant gets royal treatment, a portly CEO joked. Julian swirled his scotch, tone casual. Chloe's my childhood next door, Habit to watch out for her. A social depth charge. Ah, childhood next door, no wonder you two glow, someone cooed, eyes dissecting me like a lab frog. I kept smiling while mentally strangling him. He was engineering this fog of ambiguity on purpose. Mid-event I escaped to the restroom. On my way out Victoria blocked the corridor, sapphire gown pooling like liquid royalty. Chloe, stunning tonight. Showing up with Julian, unexpected. Work requirement, I parroted. Her gaze raked the dress, the shoes evidence. Secretary budget doesn't cover haute couture. Julian's invested. She leaned in, whisper sweet as arsenic, Sterling gates don't open wide. Play if you like, but don't invest your heart, you'll scrape pieces off the pavement. Patronizing pat on the shoulder, then she glided away. Her words nailed my deepest insecurity to the wall. I fled to the terrace. City wind cooled the alcohol flush. Of course he followed. Hiding again? He lounged against the rail, neon carving his profile. Needed air. He studied me. What did Victoria say? I startled. He read me like a earnings sheet. Nothing important, I lied, staring at traffic below. Chloe, he turned, caged me with hands on either side of the railing. I told you, this isn't toying. I rallied. No. Just Sterling's boredom relief. He leaned until our foreheads nearly touched. If I said, from long ago I never saw you merely as childhood next door or entertainment, my lungs forgot their job. Seeing me with other women hurts, yes. His knuckles grazed my clenched fist. Like it stings when men shower you with gifts to get close. I gaped, how did he even notice? Julian. Give me an answer, Chloe. His voice dropped to a velvet rumble that owned the night. Marry me, this time I'm dead serious. Wind lifted my hair across his cheek. Below, the city roared, but on this terrace there was only us and a proposal loud enough to crack the sky. This time, it wasn't the half-real, half-drunk murmurs of past birthday nights, nor the usual ambiguous teasing. His gaze was so deep, so heavy, surging with a raw vulnerability I'd never seen before. My heart was in complete chaos. Trust him, or push him away again. The night wind carried the crisp scent of his skin and a faint trace of wine, delivering his words, marry me, will you? This time, I'm serious. Clearly into my ears, each syllable striking the tip of my heart. My mind felt as if someone had hit pause, everything went blank. I could only stare blankly at his eyes, so close that the dark tide inside them threatened to swallow me. His warm breath brushed my cheek, lethally tempting. This wasn't teasing. This time I sensed, with perfect clarity, that he meant every word. But, why? Victoria's warning still rang in my ears. The vast gulf between our identities loomed like an unbridgeable chasm. He was Julian, and I was just an ordinary girl raised next door thanks to our father's friendship. Women like Victoria, perfect pedigree, flawless education, dazzling looks circled him. How could he possibly want me? My throat tightened, my voice dry, my heartbeat so loud I feared it would leap from my chest. I wanted to ask why, to ask if he was toying with me again, to tell him this was insane. But every word clogged my throat, nothing came out. Julian didn't rush me, he simply gazed quietly, the veins faintly visible across the back of the hand that rested on the railing, betraying the calm he wore like armor. Just then a commotion rose inside the ballroom, someone important must have arrived. The sudden noise was a bucket of ice water, snapping me awake. I jerked my head down, avoiding his burning stare, ducked under his arm, and stumbled a step before steadying myself. Sorry, Sterling, I need the restroom. I babbled, unable to look back. Gathering my skirt, I fled the terrace like a startled deer. This time, no low chuckle followed me, only the lonely whistle of wind across the empty terrace. I ran all the way to the ladies' room, locked the door, and leaned against the cold marble, gasping. In the mirror my cheeks flamed, eyes liquid, lips bitten crimson, every sign of a heart awakened. Chloe, you're done for. I groaned inwardly. You know perfectly well a bottomless abyss might lie ahead, so why can't you stop your heart from racing for him? After that night, I ostriched, hiding from Julian for days. If an email could replace a call, I emailed. If I had to deliver documents, I did it at light speed, eyes pinned to the carpet. Julian didn't corner me. He remained swamped steering Sterling's empire, only now and then pausing his pen while I rattled off numbers, his gaze resting on me like a tangible heat that prickled my scalp. Thursday morning, rushing a last-minute deck, I skipped breakfast and my old low blood sugar gremlin struck black dots dancing in front of the copier. What's wrong? The low voice behind me made me jump. Julian had appeared, brows drawn together. Nothing, probably low blood sugar. I steadied myself, fighting to sound normal. He studied me, said nothing, and walked back to his office. Minutes later the executive assistant line rang, reception downstairs. Chloe, you have takeout, said to be from Sterling. I went down, stunned, and returned with a sleek paper bag, steaming long and jujube tea and a few handmade pastries that looked gentle on an empty stomach. Something soft inside me collided with something sour-sweet and impossible to name. My iPhone buzzed, Julian's private chat, eat first. Meeting pushed 30-minute. Sparse, absolute, caring. That afternoon I forced myself in with signed contracts. He was on a call. His eyes signaled me to leave them. As I turned to go he cupped the receiver and murmured, "Did you eat?" I nodded. Still pale. His frown stayed. "Evening reception's off for you, go home early." That did not sound like the workaholic Julian I knew. I stared. He was already back to his call, but I knew it wasn't casual. This subtle, public-private tenderness dismantled me far more than any outright flirtation ever had. Friday night brought torrential rain. Thanks to his exemption, I'd clocked out on time and was binge-watching dramas in my tiny flat when my phone lit Julian's private number. I hesitated, then picked up. His voice was hoarse, fragile, nothing like itself. "Chloe." "Sterling." "What's wrong?" My heart catapulted. "Running a fever, no meds in the apartment, drivers off, rain's too heavy." He didn't finish. He didn't need to. Reason screamed, "Don't go, single girl, sick man, far too dangerous." But the thought of him alone, Quinn, twisted my stomach. Worry won. Keys, umbrella. I plunged into the downpour. At his penthouse I keyed the code and rushed in. Only dim sconces glowed. Julian lay curled on the wide sofa in dark silk pajamas, a cool cloth on his forehead, cheeks flushed frighteningly red. I sped over and pressed a palm to his brow, burning. "You took forever," he rasped, eyelids heavy, usually sharp gaze glazed and vulnerable. Identity gaps, Victoria's warnings, everything vaporized. I found the medical kit, thermometer, antipyretics, 39.2 C. "That's high." I yelped. "Take these." He obeyed like a child, swallowing pills from my hand, sipping water. Eyes closed, he seemed in pain. I knelt on the rug, unsure whether to change the cloth. As I reached, his fingers curled around my wrist, scorching, insistent. "Don't leave," he murmured, lashes brushing his cheekbones. "Chloe, stay with me." My heart melted into warm water. "I'm just swapping the towel." He loosened his grip but watched every move. Fresh cold cloth on his forehead, he sighed in relief. Outside, rain drummed. Inside, his ragged breaths filled the hush, laced with dangerous intimacy. Suddenly his fever-bright eyes locked on me. "You still haven't answered my terrace question." I froze. He would pick now. "Julian, the fever's talking. I'm lucid." He sounded almost wronged. "Chloe, what are you afraid of?" "That I'm lying." "Or, of Sterling?" Bullseye. Looking at this fragile yet stubborn man, so opposite the unshakable CEO, my defenses cracked wide. He pushed up, breath searing my neck, voice velvet rough. "Give me a chance, give yourself one, please." His palm slid over the back of my hand, heat branding straight to my heart. Rain sang against glass. The room brimmed with unsaid things. Staring at those fever-lit, earnest eyes, I couldn't summon the refusal that had lived on my tongue for days. Watching cracked lips, beads of sweat, my fortress caved in. I eased my hand free. As his eyes dimmed I brushed the damp hair from his temple and whispered, almost drowned by rain, "Okay." That single word paralyzed him. Disbelief flared into frantic joy. "What did you say?" He reared up so fast the room tilted. I steadied him. "Lie down, you're still burning." He clutched my arm. "Say it again." The child begging for candy unraveled me. Cheeks on fire, I mumbled. I said, "Okay. I'll give you the chance." Instantly a gentle but scorching force tugged me into his arms. Julian held me so tightly his chin dug into my hair, his heartbeat thundered against my ear, merging with my own. Avery, you, Chloe, he rasped, voice cracking with relief. Avery, you for trusting me. No desire, only reverence and gratitude for something retrieved. Gradually I relaxed and circled his waist, careful of fevered skin. You rest first. We'll talk once you're better, I said, slipping free to tuck the blanket and lay a fresh cloth. He complied, eyes never leaving me, a grin he couldn't hide painting his face like a boy with the best toy in the world. I stayed. All night I knelt beside the sofa, checking temperature, tipping water to his lips. By the small hours the fever broke and he slept. Curled on the carpet, listening to rain and his steady breathing, I felt a calm I'd never known, sweet, secret. His constitution was sterling steel. The fever vanished by morning. Our relationship, however, had shifted, subtly, completely. At the office we remained boss and secretary, Julian demanding, me meticulous. But he found cooled coffee replaced with a fresh, warm cup. I found stray hair brushed gently from my cheek. Our eyes met across conference tables, his flicker of private warmth gone almost before it surfaced. In the cafeteria he texted, "Today's ribs look good, brought you a plate?" Evenings, without fail, his car idled at my curb, gratitude for nursing me, which really meant dinner for two. We kept our romance hidden beneath fluorescent lights, savoring the clandestine thrill. Julian, the patient hunter, seemed content to claim me inch by inch while the world stayed unaware. Less than 2 weeks later, a Friday, his intercom cracked with rare gravity. "Chloe, my office." I hurried in, certain I'd bungled something. He stood behind the desk, fingers drumming wood. "We're dining at the estate tonight. Winston wants to see you." My mind blanked. Winston? Me? Why? Rumors reached him. He came around, clasped my suddenly cold hand. "Don't be afraid, I'm here." Terror still clawed. The Sterling estate was the dynasty's power core, Winston its immovable axis. If he summoned me, our cover was blown. "Because, I stammered. "Likely." Julian squeezed harder. "This gate must be crossed. Remember what you promised. Trust me." I inhaled, nodded. "All right." The estate crouched halfway up the mountain, solemn, centuries heavy. Wearing the understated but costly dress Julian had sent, I walked beside him, every footstep cautious. Inside the parlor, Winston presided on carved mahogany, eyes hawk-bright. Richard and Eleanor flanked him, her gaze raking me head to toe. And Victoria, perched beside Eleanor, smiling as though born to the family. "Grandfather, Dad, Mom," Julian greeted, then settled a hand on my shoulder, guiding me forward. "This is Chloe. Chloe, say hello." I managed a small bow. "Winston, Mr. and Sterling, good evening." A low grunt. "Little Chloe, all grown. Sit." Tea arrived, silence suffocated. Eleanor smiled silkily. "So, Chloe, you're Julian's executive assistant now? He can be strict. No trouble, I hope?" "He's very professional." Victoria chimed, "Sweet poison, Julian is exacting, yet he does take special care of Chloe, we all saw it at the gala." Eleanor's smile thinned. Julian lifted his cup, sipped, set it down. "Mother, Victoria, Chloe isn't only my assistant. She's my girlfriend." The sentence struck like lightning. Eleanor's expression froze mid-breath. Richard's brows slammed together. Victoria paled, lips parted. Winston merely studied his grandson. "Julian. Such jokes are in poor taste," Eleanor hissed. "I'm not joking." Julian threaded his fingers through mine and raised our joined hands. "We're serious. I brought her tonight to tell you officially." His grip was iron-warm, his profile, unflinching against their shock, filled me with courage. "Winston, Mr. and Sterling," I began, voice steadying, "Julian and I love each other. I know our backgrounds are worlds apart, but I'll work hard enough to deserve him, so he never has to feel torn." Eleanor's chest rose and fell in barely suppressed fury. She was about to retort when Winston, silent until now, lifted a hand. His voice was aged yet carried unquestionable authority. "Enough." He looked first at me, then at Julian, eyes sharp. "Young people should have minds of their own, that's good. But Julian, Sterling is no ordinary family. Your marriage affects far more than yourself. And Chloe, his gaze shifted to me, determination alone won't open our gates. If you want in, you'll have to prove a great deal more. He neither approved nor objected, he simply drew an invisible, crushing line in the sand. The rest of the family dinner tasted like dust. When we left the estate, Julian kept my hand locked in his. Only after we were inside the car did he let go, pulling me into a gentle embrace, chin resting on my hair. Spooked, I nestled against him, shook my head, then nodded. A little. But as long as you're here, I'm not afraid. He chuckled softly, the vibration rumbling through his chest. Leave everything to me. I'll handle Winston. On the drive back he kept my hand clasped, thumb grazing the hollow of my palm now and then, as if to reassure me or to remind himself I was real. Don't take his words to heart, he said, voice low, breaking the quiet. The old man's used to controlling every chess piece, it isn't personal. I leaned my head on his shoulder, breathing in his calming scent. I know. I just don't want to be baggage. He turned, warm lips brushing my temple. You've never been baggage, Chloe. You're my momentum. A teasing note crept in. Besides, you did great tonight, braver than I imagined. Really? I lifted my head, uncertain. Under that kind of fire, not crumbling had felt like a miracle. Amham. His gaze was firm, approving. Poised and proud, exactly how Julian's woman should look. The phrase Julian's woman set my cheeks on fire, yet honey seemed to pour through my heart. Instead of heading to my apartment, the car glided straight to his penthouse. You're staying tonight. A statement, not a question. My heartbeat stuttered. I stared at him, flustered. He read my mind, laughed under his breath, and leaned close, breath hot against my ear. Relax. You need to unwind. Anne. I've just recovered, I need a supervisor to make sure I actually rest. Noble excuse, but his eyes left no doubt about the hunger and hope behind it. In the end I half protested, half yielded, and went upstairs with him. The apartment looked exactly as we'd left it, yet the air still carried last night's rain-soaked intimacy. I stood in the living room, awkward, unsure what to do. Julian shrugged off his suit jacket, tossed it over the sofa, and walked up to me. Cradling my face, he traced my lower lip with his thumb, gaze as deep as midnight water. You've earned a reward, brave girl. Before I could answer, he bent and kissed me. Not the fleeting, testing pecks of before, this was gentle, lingering, wrapped in tenderness and reverence. He outlined my lips slowly, guiding my clumsy response until my bones melted and I had to cling to him, trembling with each shiver he coaxed. When we parted, both of us were breathing unsteadily. He touched his forehead to mine, nuzzling my nose. Like your reward. I buried my scorching face in the curve of his neck and nodded. He smiled, satisfied, arms tightening until there was nothing left but our meshed heartbeats and shared warmth. Somehow news of the dinner seeped out. Though Julian smothered most rumors, whispers of the secretary who hooked the sterling air still drifted through the office. Colleagues glanced at me with mixed curiosity, envy, and open scorn. I ignored them, burying myself in work to prove I belonged on merit, not via Julian's name. That afternoon, heading for the break room, I was intercepted by Victoria at a corridor corner. She looked as perfect as ever, but frost glittered in her eyes. I underestimated you, Chloe. Sarcasm dripped from every syllable. Didn't think you could make Julian defy Winston and Eleanor for you. I stopped, meeting her stare calmly. Julian and I care about each other, Victoria. Care? She gave a brittle laugh. You really believe it will last? Sterling won't accept you, Riverdale won't accept you. What you have is moonlight on water. Once the novelty fades, or real resistance hits, do you think he'll still shield you? Her words were poison-tipped needles sliding straight into my deepest fear. But I was no longer the girl who fled in panic. Drawing a steady breath, I held her gaze. That's between Julian and me. I trust him and us. Trust. Victoria sneered. Fine. Let's see how long your trust holds. She pivoted away in arrogant dismissal. My palms were damp, pulse racing. Her venom had hit its mark, yet retreat wasn't an option. That evening, over dinner, I hesitated, then told Julian about the confrontation. His expression darkened. He set down his chopsticks and clasped my hand. Ignore every syllable she uttered. Eyes blazing, he said, remember this, I've chosen you. No one gets to veto that. I'll untangle the sterling knots, you just stay beside me and believe, understood? His certainty scattered every shadow in me. Okay, I answered, nodding firmly. Satisfied, he served me the sweet and sour ribs I loved, tone lazy again. Eat up. After this I'm taking you somewhere. When we finished, he pulled me into the elevator and punched the button for the roof. The heavy fire door swung open onto a hidden oasis, an air garden ringed by greenery, complete with a tiny glass greenhouse. Beside it stood a professional telescope. Occasional hideout, he said, adjusting the lens. Look. I peered through the eyepiece and gasped. Saturn's rings hung in pale gold splendor. It's beautiful. He wrapped his arms around me from behind, chin on my shoulder. From now on this place is ours. Whenever you need quiet or stars, come up here. Leaning against him, I gazed at the constellations, happiness and safety flooding my chest. Julian, I whispered, Avery, for standing by me, for everything. He hugged me tighter, voice solemn as a vow. I want more than your Avery, Chloe. I want every tomorrow, sunrises, sunsets, clouds with you. I turned, looped my arms around his neck, and, under the starry sky, rose on tiptoe to press my lips to his. Yes. After that night on the roof, we stepped into a new chapter. Julian began for convenience and carpool reasons to keep me at his penthouse more nights than not. At first it was occasional, soon my toothbrush, skincare bottles, a few changes of clothes, even my laptop and dog-eared textbooks quietly colonized corners of his space. He welcomed the invasion with visible satisfaction. One Ellis dawn I was half asleep when I felt him twirling a strand of my hair. Opening my eyes, I found him propped on an elbow, winding the lock around his finger, gaze intent. What are you doing? I mumbled, snuggling closer. He laughed softly, brushing my lips with a mint-flavored kiss. Nothing. Just realizing the place finally smells like you. His words feathered across my heart. This man staked his claim in the quietest, most romantic ways. A mug bearing my name appeared in his study, my snacks crowded his once mineral water-only fridge, and a slim section of his walk-in closet was emptied to hang soft loungewear and nightgowns he'd ordered for me. Each small trace of me felt like a signature on the blueprint of his life. Then a call shattered the calm. The screen showed private assistant to Eleanor Sterling, politely inviting me to tea that Ellis afternoon at a secluded tea house. The reckoning had come. My palm turned damp around the phone. Julian was in a video conference. I wouldn't disturb him, nor let him think I lacked courage to face his mother alone. I texted back, I'll be there. Ellis, I chose a tailored but understated suit and arrived 10 minutes early. In the private room Eleanor already waited, immaculate in a pale pink chipao, eyes coolly assessing. Sterling. I greeted her and sat opposite. Chloe, she replied, signaling the server. I hear you're living with Julian now? My stomach tightened, her intel was fast. Yes, no denial. She lifted her teacup, steam swirling. Passion is natural, but you understand, Sterling. Julian's future isn't his alone, it affects the entire group, the family. She paused, gaze sharpening. Frankly, I don't see you as suitable wife material. Upbringing, social circles, mutual value, you're mismatched. My heart sank, yet I kept my composure. I love Julian, and I'll keep improving to deserve him. Love. A faint, dismissive smile. Love doesn't run a boardroom. I won't forcibly separate you, but I have one condition. I met her stare. Leave Sterling, she said, voice calm and absolute. Julian needs a partner who supplies emotional stability and family support, not a secretary beside him daily, someone who might cloud his judgment or become his weakness. Prove you're willing to sacrifice for him. Build a career elsewhere and still hold value. Quit Sterling. The job was my post-graduation triumph, the best platform for my skills and salary. Leaving meant losing the daily fight shoulder to shoulder with Julian. Sterling, take a week to decide. She stood, gracious. If you refuse, I'll resort to blunter methods of waking Julian up. The tea is lovely, enjoy. Watching her leave, I sat motionless, emotions a tangled knot. When I returned to the penthouse, Julian was already back, eyes closed on the sofa. He opened them the moment the door clicked. "Where were you?" he asked casually, then read my face. In 2 strides he tilted my chin, studying me. "Who messed with you?" Before him my masks evaporated. I recounted Eleanor's offer. With every sentence his expression iced over. By the end his eyes were arctic. "She's gone too far." His voice was low, furious. "Who allowed her to corner you with that ultimatum?" He crushed me to him, arms steel bands. "You're not going anywhere. Stay right here, under my nose. No one touches you." His fierceness steadied my rocking heart. "But your mother. I'll handle her." "Absolute. You're my choice. You owe no one proof, sacrifice nothing. Your worth is mine to declare and yours. No one else votes." Palming my face, he vowed, "Trust me. Just stay and be yourself, okay?" "Okay," I murmured into his chest. Feeling me cling, he gentled. "Tonight we're going to that sushi bar you love, then a movie, clear your head." "All right." True to his word, he cancelled all meetings. Over dinner and a silly rom-com he was attentive, refusing to let Eleanor's shadow touch the evening. Back home, nerves frayed, I yawned. He nudged me toward a hot shower while he answered urgent emails. When I emerged, hair damp, he was in the study. Leaning against the doorframe, I watched the lamplight carve his profile, feeling safe. He stretched out a hand. "Come." I settled onto his lap, bath-fresh skin meeting his cool shirt. Still brooding, he murmured, fingers massaging my scalp through damp strands. I half-purred, shook my head. "Much better. Good." He brushed my neck with his nose, warm breath sending shivers. "My Chloe only needs to be happy. Leave the rest to me." Kisses drifted to my collarbone, soothing yet instantly hotter. His hands slipped to my waist, exploring through thin cotton. In the dim lamplight, monitor glow flickering across his face, I felt every inch of his rising want. "Julian." My voice came out breathy, uncertain. "Sure." His lips traced my, gentle but inexorable. "Stop thinking." Bold caresses followed whispered words. Within minutes I was melting, clutching his shoulders as he guided us into breathless, private fire right there among quarterly reports and muted city lights. Julian kept his promise. The morning after I told him about Eleanor's summons, he drove to the estate. Whatever storms he unleashed on Winston and Eleanor, the servants later whispered that his stance had never been harder. "It's Chloe, or I walk from Sterling Core Control." Eleanor was obviously stunned by her son's decisiveness, or perhaps Julian's cost-benefit analysis had persuaded her. For the moment, her side fell silent. But Julian was far from satisfied. 1 week later, at a high-profile charity gala hosted by Sterling, Julian attended as the organizer's representative, with me on his arm. That night, he not only kept me beside him the entire time as his official date, but during his speech he also did something that made the whole room gasp. Sterling's growth is built on the dedication and brilliance of every employee. Standing in the spotlight, utterly composed, he swept his gaze across the hall and finally landed on me, tenderness and pride shining in his eyes. "Tonight, I want to give special recognition to my chief secretary, Chloe. In the recently concluded Eastside Development Project, her outstanding professionalism and keen market insight saved the group from major risk and secured a critical opportunity. Every eye in the room instantly snapped to me, some surprised, some curious, and one from Victoria's direction so icy it felt solid. I was frozen. I had worked on the project and offered a few suggestions, but nowhere near the heroic role he described. He had just, in front of everyone, using the most formal stage, cleared my name and gilded it. Julian ignored the stares and continued evenly. "Sterling has always promoted on merit and cherishes every talented individual. I believe that, no matter the position, ability and responsibility deserve respect and recognition." His words rang like a bell. It wasn't only an affirmation of my competence, it was the most powerful counterpunch to every rumor that I'd climbed in through connections, and a declaration to all that Chloe was someone Julian valued and protected, her status beyond dispute. After the dinner, in the car back to my apartment, I studied the perfect line of his profile, my heart a tangle of gratitude, warmth, and a sliver of insecurity. You didn't have to say all that, I said softly. The East Side call was mostly yours. He turned, laced his fingers through mine, voice adamant. I absolutely had to. My woman deserves the best, including honor and respect. I want everyone to know that you, Chloe, stand beside me on merit. He leaned in and brushed a soft but firm kiss across my lips. This is only the beginning. To help me unwind, and maybe as compensation for the gala fireworks, Julian arranged an Ellis and whisked me to a top private hot spring resort in the next county. Surrounded by quiet hills and water, we checked into a suite with its own open-air thermal pool. That night, soaking in the sulphurous steam, I tilted my head back to a star-studded sky and felt every knot of stress dissolve. Julian sat opposite me, the water lapping at his chest, droplets sliding over carved muscle, dangerously sexy in the misty light. Seeing how relaxed I looked, he crooked a wicked grin and beckoned. Come here. My face burned. I shook my head and shrank toward the edge. Unperturbed, he waded straight over, ripples rolling ahead of him like an advancing tide. One long arm snaked out and pulled me flush against him. The hot water and hotter skin shot the temperature through the roof. Avoiding me, he murmured at my ear, breath scorching. It's only us here. His kiss started behind my ear and glided down my neck, steam-wet and more lingering than ever. Beneath the surface, his hands wandered, sparking fires wherever they roamed. Only the quiet gurgle of water and our quickening breaths disturbed the night. Dizzy with desire, I almost surrendered, but the last shred of sense pressed against his chest. Not here, back to the room. He stilled, lust-clouded eyes holding mine, then gave a low, indulgent chuckle. All right, your way. Instead of carrying me out at once, he turned me so my back rested against his chest, my damp hair under his chin, his arms circling my waist, simply holding me. Let's stay like this a moment, he said, voice lazy with contentment. Chloe, as long as I'm with one arm again. Let's just stay like this a minute. My heart melted into warm spring water. I leaned back against him, feeling the steady thud of his heart and the heat of his skin, the world suddenly quiet and perfect. Back at headquarters, I dove into preparing a new acquisition, my first solo lead, the perfect chance to prove myself to Julian and everyone else. But midway through, a crisis struck. The target firm tabled a brutal add-on clause that almost breached our bottom line. Until then, talks had been smooth, the ambush smelled fishy. The team split, some urged compromise, others hard line, and the pressure crushed me. That night I worked late, scowling at spreadsheets and forecasts, utterly stuck. Julian finished his own work, pushed open my office door, pulled a chair beside me, and began leafing through my files. Here, he said, tapping a data model, your assumptions are too rosy. Have you factored in their recent cash flow slide? And this clause, he added, indicating a line of legal print, looks harmless, but paired with their abrupt personnel shakeup, it's probably a trap. He skewered every blind spot without a hint of blame, only calm analysis and guidance. So, what now? I asked, deflated. He closed the folder, eyes steady. Find a problem, fix a problem. Panic doesn't help. He ruffled my hair. Remember, you're the protégé of Julian. Can't you handle a little squall? His words were a shot of adrenaline. We stayed up reworking data, strategies, mock negotiations. He didn't hand me answers, he steered me toward the optimum ones ourselves. By dawn, when we finalized the plan, I was exhausted but electrified. Avery. I stared at the faint shadows beneath his eyes. He lifted a brow, yanked me into his lap, and stole a kiss. Words aren't enough. When we close this deal, I want a tangible reward. I blushed, swatting him, stomach fizzing with sugar. In the end, under my lead and Julian's quiet backing, we closed the acquisition on terms even sweeter than hoped. My stock in the company soared, and the whispers lost volume. At the victory party I was toasted repeatedly. Julian, as CEO, was naturally the center of gravity. He intercepted many of the drinks aimed at me, but I still ended up pleasantly tipsy. Riding home, I nestled against him, head fuzzy yet braver. Julian. I tugged his tie, words slurring. His arm kept me steady. Your mom still doesn't like me, does she? Alcohol had magnified my insecurity. He hesitated, tucked me closer, chin brushing my hair. Her feelings don't matter. Mine do. But. No buts. He cut me off, drowsy yet crystal clear. Chloe, listen. I, Julian, have decided on you for life. No one can pull us apart. You just concentrate on being my Sterling, leave the rest to me. In the dim car, his low vow sobered me faster than any remedy. I tipped my face up, kissed his cool lips, and mumbled, "Okay, you're Sterling." He returned the kiss, tender and lingering, sealing the promise wordlessly. The successful acquisition seemed to shift Sterling's view of me. At the very least, Eleanor stopped summoning me for private chats, though her civility remained glacial when we met. Unexpectedly, Winston himself phoned Julian and told him to bring me for Sunday dinner at the estate, tone even, give nothing away. This time I walked through those doors calmer, more confident. Julian held my hand the entire ride, wordless strength flowing into me. At the table the atmosphere wasn't warm, but it wasn't the battlefield of my first visit either. Winston asked detailed questions about the deal. I answered carefully, crediting Julian's pointers where due. Expressionless, he occasionally nodded. After dessert he called Julian into the study. Eleanor and I stayed in the living room. She said little, directing the maid to serve fruit. Half an hour later the men emerged, Julian relaxed, eyes laughing at me. Winston stopped before me, gaze sharp but softer than before. "Chloe girl," he began, voice strong. "Julian's eye is indeed sharp, you're steady and hungry to climb." He paused. "But a Sterling daughter-in-law needs more. The road's long, you'll keep learning." Not full endorsement, yet a green light, he would no longer stand in our way. "Avery, Winston, I'll keep at it," I answered, suppressing a thrilled smile. He gave a curt nod and left for his study. In the car home I blurted, "What did he say?" Julian's grin spread wide. He said, "Since you're hell-bent and the girl isn't hopeless, I'll stay out of it for now." He imitated the old man's growl, then looked over, eyes blazing. Translation: the last big hurdle is gone. I exhaled, a weight sliding off my chest. Back inside the apartment he pinned me to the foyer wall the instant the door shut, kissing me fiercely, joy and release pouring out of him. "Did you hear? Grandfather's given us his okay." He breathed between kisses, hot palms slipping under my blouse. I felt the pressure he'd carried unwind. "Yeah." I twined my arms round his neck, pressing closer. With a darkened gaze he scooped me up and strode to the bedroom. Tonight he was more eager, more reverent, as though afraid I might vanish. Kisses branded every inch of me, sometimes tender, sometimes commanding. He drove us both to the edge again and again. On the brink of oblivion I heard his rasp, "Chloe, you're mine, always." Afterwards he didn't let go but held me tight, face buried in my neck. "Marry me," he said into the hush statement, not question. My heart slammed. I'd known it was coming, yet the blunt words still shook me. He lifted his head, locking onto my eyes. "After next quarter's key projects, we plan the wedding. I want the world to know you're my lawful wife." I touched his damp temple, smile blooming. "Okay." Winston's shift, and the faint leak of our engagement, seemed to snuff Victoria's last hope. She asked me to coffee under Sterling Tower. She was thinner, makeup flawless, but her glow had dimmed. "Congratulations, Chloe," she said, stirring her cup, voice unreadable. "You won. There's no winning in love, Victoria. I just happen to be the one Julian loves." A wry smile. "Lucky you." She set the spoon aside. "I underestimated you and overestimated my place. I'm leaving the country for a while." I wished her honestly well. Pride like hers couldn't abide this city of stares and whispers. At the door she added, "Keeping the Sterling crown isn't easy. Don't disappoint me or those waiting to laugh." Warning or final jab, her words lingered, but at least one rival was gone. With outside resistance low, our days settled into sweetness. I began making him breakfast, simple eggs, buttered toast, milk, and he always cleaned his plate before claiming a chef's reward kiss. He developed a new ritual. Every morning I had to knot his tie. Sunlight poured through the glass as he bent his head, patient while I fumbled. Clumsy, he'd tease, guiding my fingers. When the silk lay perfect, he'd steal a kiss and head out. These small routines felt bigger than any grand declaration. End of the month, Julian flew abroad for a week, our longest separation since we became us. At the drop-off I fussed over his luggage, listing reminders. He laughed, hugged me hard, and pressed a kiss to my forehead. Daily calls, I promise. The second night, my iPhone buzzed with a video request. His freshly showered face filled the screen, bathrobe loose, hair dripping. "What are you doing?" he asked, voice husky. "Reading reports." I flipped the camera to the monitor. "Look at me instead." I obeyed, cheeks warm. "One day down and I already miss you," he confessed, almost petulant. "I miss you too." "Where?" he smirked. "Julian." I squeaked. He laughed, robe slipping lower, promise heavy in his eyes. "When I'm back I'll make it up to you." Even across the ocean, his gaze scorched me, filling the night with sweet, wicked anticipation. That week, our nightly video calls became a new sweet ritual between us. Sometimes they were serious work discussions, sometimes we traded bits of daily life, and more often than not they were sticky sweet moments tinted with color and longing. The day Julian flew back, I arrived at Riverdale a full hour early. The international arrivals hall was a river of people. I stood on tiptoe, anxiously scanning for that familiar silhouette. When I finally saw Julian wheeling his suitcase, a simple black trench coat hanging from his broad shoulders, my heartbeat missed a beat. A week apart had somehow made him even more gorgeous. The icy stay-away aura he wore melted the instant he spotted me, dissolving into tenderness and longing so thick I could drown in it. He caught sight of me almost immediately, quickened his pace, wove through the crowd, and walked straight up to me. "Have you waited long?" His voice was hoarse with post-flight fatigue, but his eyes were shockingly bright. I shook my head, had no time to answer, before he yanked me into a crushing embrace, as though he meant to fuse me into his bones. His chin settled on the crown of my head while he inhaled deeply, that unique, reassuring scent that belonged only to him. "Missed you like crazy," he whispered against my ear, his burning breath scorching my earlobe. Around us the world was loud, but we might as well have been the only two people in it. I circled his lean waist and buried my face in his chest, mumbling, "Me too." He chuckled softly, loosened his grip just enough to tip up my chin, and kissed me without giving me time to breathe. The kiss was fierce with a week's worth of longing, hot and lingering. Only when I was panting did he let me go, still wanting more. "Let's go home," he said, eyes dark, fingers lacing through mine so tightly there was no escape. We barely spoke on the ride. The air inside the car was so charged it felt ready to combust. His hand stayed locked on mine, thumb unconsciously stroking my knuckles. The moment we stepped inside the apartment, the door clicked shut behind us and Julian pressed me against the entry wall, suitcase toppled and forgotten. His scorching kiss fell again, more urgent and deeper than at the airport, a starving man demanding his fill. "Julian, the suitcase." I managed between kisses, voice unsteady. "Forget it," he muttered, fingers already slipping inside my coat, gliding over my trembling spine. The foyer light was dim, painting overlapping shadows of us on the wall. He looked like a beast finally back on his own territory, reclaiming every inch. Clothes drifted to the floor one by one, cool air kissed my skin, then was replaced by his searing heat. He carried me, kissing all the way, stumbling toward the bedroom. In my haze I heard his husky promise, "Time to pay up for the week I owed you." That night he seemed tireless, acting out the proverb distance makes the heart grow fonder to its physical extreme. Wave after wave of pleasure crashed over me until I could only cling to him, sinking into sleep beneath his repeated claims and murmured love. Once the family gave their silent nod, wedding prep moved onto the agenda naturally. Emery, we curled up on the living room couch while warm sunlight poured in. I swiped through photos of venues on my tablet. Julian answered emails beside me, one arm possessively circling my waist. "Which do you like? Island? Castle? Or here in town?" He glanced at the screen between messages. "I can't decide." The gorgeous choices overwhelmed me. "They all look so expensive." He laughed softly and pinched my cheek. "Sterling, the money your husband makes is for you to spend. Pick the one you love, price is irrelevant." His indulgence left me glowing. I leaned on his shoulder, paging through shots, occasionally pointing, "This one's nice, that one too. Whatever you like." He nodded at every pic, adoring. "Venue, wedding gown, jewels, every detail follows your taste." I have only one requirement. He paused, eyes serious and deep. That the bride is you. My heart overflowed. I tipped up to kiss the corner of his mouth. Then the groom can only be you. We smiled at each other, bathed in sunshine and warmth. A formal visit to my parents was mandatory now that marriage was on the table. Although they'd long known Julian and I were together, meeting them as the prospective son-in-law carried different weight. Beforehand I was a bundle of nerves, drilling him on Mom and Dad's preferences and taboos. He remained unruffled, squeezing my hand. Relax. I won't embarrass Sterling. That day he traded his usual immaculate suit for refined casual wear, softer, friendlier. The gifts were thoughtful, nothing ostentatious, yet every item suited my parents perfectly. At dinner he reigned in his boardroom aura and behaved with modest courtesy. When Dad asked his views on business, he answered with depth but no arrogance, showing solid insight. Dad nodded repeatedly. Mom fretted over our daily life. Julian replied gently, every sentence demonstrating how he treasured and protected me, until Mom beamed. Chloe was spoiled by us. You'll need to indulge her, Mom said, patting his hand. Julian smiled back, clasping her hand in return. Don't worry, Sterling. With me Chloe will live even better than at home. I love her more than anything. The words came out naturally, sincere. Mom and Dad exchanged a look of pure relief. When they saw us out, Mom secretly gave me a thumbs up. Good eye, kiddo. Back in the car I studied his perfect profile and laughed. Full marks for Sterling today. He cocked a brow and pulled me closer. Then, does full marks earn a reward? What reward do you want? He leaned to my ear, warm breath teasing. Tonight, let's try the new purchase. My face exploded in heat. I swatted him, heart fluttering at the private naughtiness only I ever saw. Ellis, Julian cleared his schedule to accompany me to bridal salons. Service at the top atelier was flawless, yet when I pointed out gowns I liked, Julian told the consultants, please give us a minute, I want to watch my bride alone. The staff withdrew with professional smiles, leaving the two of us in the spacious VIP fitting room. When I stepped out in the first strapless crystal-studded ball gown, Julian stood with his back to me, gazing out the window. Hearing the rustle, he turned. At the undisguised wonder and fascination in his eyes, every shred of my nervousness dissolved into sweetness. He walked toward me, gaze locked, reached out, and let his fingertips graze the crystals before drifting up to brush my collarbone with burning heat. Stunning, he rasped, eyes deep as the sea and swirling with possessive desire. But not as stunning as when you wear nothing. I flushed crimson and glared. Julian. He laughed softly, arms sliding around my waist, forehead against mine. I mean it. This one is beautiful, next one, my bride. He judged every gown personally. In the fitting room he became my most critical yet adoring audience, tightening laces, fingers accidentally skimming my back, lifting the mermaid train, gaze glued to me with undisguised heat. In the end we chose a sleek, sculptural satin gown. When I appeared in it he produced a ring, dropped to one knee, and proposed again in the empty salon, the reason he'd dismissed the staff. Chloe, marry me. He looked up, devout and resolute. Sunlight through the gauze curtain gilded him. I cried and laughed at once, nodding hard. Yes. Preparations raced ahead. One night we holed up in the study reviewing guest lists and invitation mock-ups. The designer had sent several exquisite samples. I gravitated toward an understated champagne card with subtle gold embossing, low-key luxury. Julian picked another and handed it to me. This one. It was pure white, minimalist, only our names Julian. Chloe in the lower right, the letters raised so you could feel every contour. Isn't it too plain? I hesitated. He moved closer, finger tracing the names. I want every guest to see our names together first thing. And, he added with a wicked grin, when they run their fingers over it they'll trace us, like this. He guided my fingertip again and again across the raised letters, slow, sensuous, electric. My cheeks burned. I understood his secret claim, not opulence, but an invisible way to make every touch a witness to our unity. All right, your call. I gave in, heart rippling at this childish, domineering romance. He kissed my forehead, satisfied. Good girl. Custom dictated separate bachelor parties. Mine was simple dinner with my closest girlfriends, then a quiet lounge for chat. His executive assistant accidentally let slip that Julian's childhood buddies had dragged him to a private club. I trusted his judgment and didn't worry. A little after 10, as my friends and I were about to head home, my iPhone buzzed. Julian. Where are you? His voice carried a barely perceptible tautness. I gave the lounge's name. Stay put, I'm coming. He hung up. Within 20 minutes his car idled at the curb. He walked over in a black shirt and trousers, tall and impossible to miss in the night. After politely greeting my friends, his eyes swept over me, checking I was intact. Only then did his gaze soften. He buckled me in, started the car, and casually asked, "Have fun?" "Lots. Just chatting with the girls." He gave a soft grunt. At a red light he suddenly leaned in, nose brushing my neck like a large dog sniffing. "What are you doing?" I giggled, squirming. "Checking for any scent that shouldn't be there." He sounded righteous. Tobacco, alcohol, another man's cologne. I laughed in exasperation. It was all girls. What scent? Only then did he relax, intertwining our fingers. My side was boring. They drank and yelled, but I kept thinking about you. I knew half of it was flattery, all of it possessiveness. Even a girl's night required his claim. "I missed you too." I pecked his cheek. "Let's go home." At last a pleased smile curved his lips. 1 week before the wedding we did the final fitting. Julian cleared the salon again. Only a senior dresser remained at a respectful distance. I stepped into the main gown. She arranged veil and train, then tactfully withdrew. Julian stood in a custom black tuxedo so handsome it stole breath. "Spin for me," he murmured. I turned slowly. The vast skirt rippled like a bloom. He embraced me from behind, hands at my waist, chin on my bare shoulder, watching our reflection. "Breathtaking," he sighed, lips brushing my skin and sending shivers. His palms lingered at my sides, scorching even through layers of silk. "Sterling, I can't wait," he rasped, the mirror spelling pure possessiveness, as though the pristine gown might be stripped away any second. My cheeks flamed. I nudged him with an elbow. "Behave, the dresser's still here." He chuckled, eased off slightly, yet stayed wrapped around me while we soaked in the hushed, anticipatory intimacy. By tradition, bride and groom must not meet the night before. I stayed alone in the hotel bridal suite, exhausted but tossing and turning. While I counted sheep on the ceiling, my screen lit. WhatsApp from Julian. "Asleep?" I replied. "No. A video request popped up at once. I scrambled to accept. On the small screen he wore a bathrobe, leaning against his bedhead. "Still awake? Tomorrow will be hectic." "Can't sleep," I confessed, feeling less hollow the moment I saw his face. "Me neither. Not used to you not here." We gazed at each other through the pixels, volumes unsaid. "Chloe," he said, suddenly formal, "tomorrow you officially become my wife." I nodded, a tangle of excitement, bliss, tiny nerves. "Don't be afraid," he soothed, gentle yet certain. "Leave everything to me. All you need to do is walk toward me." His words were a spell that smoothed every crease. We murmured a little more. His soft voice lulled my eyelids. "Sleep now," he whispered. "See you tomorrow, my bride. See you tomorrow." I smiled at the screen and closed my eyes, his voice a substitute for the embrace I couldn't have. This forbidden call became the warmest interlude of the eve. Wedding day, sun blazing. On my father's arm I walked the long aisle carpeted with petals. At the far end Julian stood in black tails, shoulders squared, eyes locking on me with awe, love, and a finality that said everything had led to this. Dad placed my hand in his. Julian closed firm fingers around it as though grasping the whole world. When it came time for rings, he slipped the unique diamond onto my finger and, before the officiant spoke, looked straight at me and delivered the vow he had written. "Chloe, my Chloe." From childhood next door to the end of our days, I once thought fate meant us to be friends. Later I realized it gave me a lifetime to love, protect, and spoil you. Avery, you, for walking into my life to be my wife. From this day your joy is my duty, your tears my task to dry, your future inseparable from mine. I love you, now and always. No flowery language, yet every word struck home with Julian's trademark domineering devotion. Tears blurred my sight. Amid applause and blessings he bent and kissed his bride tender, unhurried, sealing the promise of 20+ years. I knew the tale of Mr. and Sterling had only just begun. Countless tomorrows waited for us to fill them with more sweetness than we could imagine. Thank you for listening. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate this story? If you liked the video, please like and share it with friends. We look forward to your comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more wonderful stories. See you next time.